Elephants run from bees, great white sharks run from orcas. Neither of those is a figure of speech. In one experiment, researchers played the recorded sound of angry bees to 18 wild elephant families, and within 10 seconds, almost half of them had already left. We tend to assume that fear runs downhill, that the biggest animal in any room is the least frightened one. It does not work like that. Every giant on this planet has something it gets out of the way of, and the thing it avoids is almost never the thing you would guess. Sometimes it weighs 1/10 of a gram. Samburu, Northern Kenya, 2007. Lucy King and her colleagues recorded the sound of a disturbed African honeybee colony, hid a speaker in a tree, and waited for wild elephants to walk past. Then they pressed play. Almost half the families ran within 10 seconds. By 80 seconds, every group but one was gone. And they did not just step back, they moved around 60 meters, more than 3 times as far as the elephants who heard the control. The control was not silence. It was white noise, at the same volume, and most of them ignored it completely. Here is why it works. An elephant's hide is armour in most places, but the eyes are exposed, the folds of the ear are thin, and the inside of the trunk, the part it cannot close and cannot reach into, is soft and packed with nerve endings. A bee cannot sting through the flank of a 6-ton animal. It does not need to. It only has to find the few places that were never protected. 3 years later, the same team found something stranger. When elephants hear bees, they make a particular sound, a low rumble, with the second formant shifted upward, which is a technical way of saying the animal is actively reshaping its own vocal tract to produce it. This is a deliberately built noise, and when researchers played back only that rumble to other elephants with no bees anywhere, those elephants shook their heads, threw dust over their backs, and retreated further and faster than they did for an ordinary rumble. They had never heard a bee. They had heard another elephant say the word for bees, which brings up the small animal everyone thinks elephants are scared of, mice. That one is a fable, literally. It goes back to the ancient Greeks and their stories about a mouse crawling up an elephant's trunk. Every time it has been tested on camera with real elephants, nothing happens. They look bored. What actually startles an elephant is anything that moves suddenly and unexpectedly nearby, mouse or not. That is a reflex, not a phobia. The mouse story has survived 2,000 years. The bee story is real, and it is 19 years old. And it is not only bees. In the same part of Kenya, there is a tree called the whistling thorn, and elephants leave it standing while stripping almost everything else within reach. So researchers removed the ants that live inside it. The elephants ate the tree. The ants are Crematogasta, and they weigh about 5 milligrams each, roughly 1/1000th of the animal they are steering. They pour into the trunk from the inside. And a 4-ton herbivore quietly decides that this particular tree is not worth it. The same arithmetic runs on the ground. A lion weighs around 190 kilograms. A crested porcupine weighs 15. And lions, as a rule, leave them alone. When researchers went back through the historical record, they found roughly 50 lions injured or killed by porcupine quills, 40 badly hurt, 10 dead. Quills that reached an artery, quills that reached the heart. One of them, the man-eater of Darajani, was found with a quill driven more than 15 centimeters into its snout. It could not hunt properly anymore, so it started hunting people. These are records rather than filmed observations, but there are 50 of them. Now, the ocean. And the animal everybody agrees is the villain of the ocean. Off the Farallon Islands, west of San Francisco, great white sharks gather every autumn to hunt seals. When orcas move through, not hunting sharks, just passing, the white sharks leave. In every case the researchers examined, the sharks did not come back for the rest of the season. And off Gansby in South Africa, the largest white shark aggregation on Earth, two orcas known as Port and Starboard started killing them. Since 2017, the sharks have simply stopped using stretches of that coastline. Then, in March 2019, off Bremer Bay in Western Australia, a pod of 12 to 14 orcas attacked an adult blue whale. The largest animal that has ever existed, heavier than any dinosaur, and about 27 times the mass of any single orca in that pod. Two of them got on top of it and held it under until it drowned. Before that day, scientists had plenty of records of blue whales carrying orca scars. They had no confirmed kill. Now there are three. But there is one animal down there that does not run. And it is the one that explains everything else in this video. When orcas come for sperm whales, the sperm whales stop and form a circle. Heads together in the middle, tails pointing outward, calves and injured animals in the center. It is called a marguerite. In one recorded encounter, 35 orcas attacked 9 sperm whales off the coast of California. And every time the orcas dragged one animal out of the circle, one or two of the others left the safety of the formation, swam out into the attack, and escorted it back in. So what actually decides who is afraid of whom? Not size, not strength, cost. A fight is a transaction, and a giant is not really afraid of losing. A giant is afraid of paying. An elephant that takes a face full of stings does not die. It spends the next week half-blind in a landscape with lions in it. A lion with a quill in its shoulder does not die that day. It dies 2 months later, starving. Being enormous means you win almost every fight you have. It also means you have more to lose than anything else out there, and every animal in this video has done that arithmetic. Which leads to the best ending I have read in a long time. Because elephants avoid bees, farmers in Kenya began hanging beehives from wires strung between fence posts. An elephant pushes the fence, the hives swing, the bees come out. Over 3.5 years on one group of farms, 253 elephants came at those fences, and 80% of them turned around. Across 6 growing seasons and more than 3,000 elephants, the average was 86%. Nobody gets shot. Nobody loses a season of food. And the farmers harvest and sell the honey, labelled accurately as elephant-friendly. For a century, the answer to an elephant in your field was a rifle or a wall or an electric fence. The answer turned out to be an insect weighing 1/10 of a gram that was already living in the next tree. The fear was never the problem. The fear was the solution. If the hidden rules behind the natural world are your kind of thing, subscribe. There is a whole planet of them still left to find.